Hello, YouTubers and NFL fans everywhere. This is Matt, the NFL Fanatic, giving you my Week 17, 2017 NFL predictions. Well, I hope everybody out there that has watched my videos had a very Merry Christmas and a great holiday. I know I did. I had a great time with my family, just spending time with them, getting to catch up and telling them how everything's been, and also all the gifts I received from my family and friends. And I am doing this video with my brand new Logitech camera, which is really exciting. And I hope for everybody out there that has talked about my camera in the past, I hope the video is a lot clearer and more concise, and there's no focus moving from the camera either. So I really hope everybody enjoy the new video camera. But overall, for the picking over the holiday week, it was overall positive. Santa gave me two good gifts by having two winning records. Against the spread last week, I went 8-7-1, which equals 53%. I could have gone 9-7, but the Eagles decided to score a defensive TD for the second time in 3 weeks at the buzzer to kill my pick against the spread. I had the Raiders at +9. It was a 3-point game. They scored a TD, which made it 9, so that pushed, and hence I got the 8-7-1 record. Straight up, though, for the second straight week, I went 13-3, so I've really done a good job this year picking games just outright, and I'm really proud of how my record has been, and I hope I can continue that into the last week of the year, with only 16 games to go. And just for anybody wondering, overall now, my record, I am now 500 against the spread even. I have 115 victories with 115 losses, and with 9 pushes. And straight up, I am 162-78, which equals 67.5%. One of my better years. I'm hoping if I get 13-3 or better, that will equal about 68.3%. Probably one of the highest years overall picking I've ever had. So I'm really hoping for that moving forward to end out the year. I do want to congratulate, before I go into my picks, I do want to congratulate the Pittsburgh Steelers and New England Patriots for clinching first-round byes with the Jaguars' loss for New England, and Pittsburgh beating the Texans off of that. And I also want to congratulate the New Orleans Saints, Carolina Panthers, the LA Rams, the Jags, and the Chiefs for clinching their divisions and clinching their playoff spots respectively in very good competitive games. For the most part, the Rams-Titans game was incredibly competitive. The Panthers-Bucks game was good. The Saints-Falcons game, that was a pretty decisive game, but Atlanta had their flashes and runs where they made it close. And for KC, it's the first time in franchise history they've been able to clinch consecutive AFC West titles. So congrats to the Chiefs for that. There's still a lot to play for in Week 17, however. You have the number 1 seed in the AFC on the line, Pittsburgh and New England. If New England wins against the Jets, they'll get home field advantage. If they lose somehow and the Steelers can blow the biggest game of the year against the winless Browns, then the Steelers will get home field advantage. And then in the AFC, with the 3 and 4 seed basically locked, it's up to essentially wild card seeding between the Bills, Chargers, Ravens, and Titans. The Ravens and Titans have the easiest scenarios. All they have to do is win their games respectively and get in. For everybody else, essentially, Buffalo would have to hope the Chargers lose, they win. I think the Titans lose, they get in. And then for the Chargers, all they have to hope to do is for the Titans to lose, and then they get in with a win. But the Ravens and Titans have the easiest 2 spots. While in the NFC, the number 2 seed still up for grabs between Minnesota and Carolina. The NFC South between the Saints and Panthers is still on the line, and the 6th seed between the Atlanta Falcons and Seattle Seahawks is on the line as well. So there's still a good amount to play for, and I'm excited to see some of these games just due to the starters having to play. Well, there's some teams like the Rams, the Jags, the Chiefs, who have already said they're going to probably bench starters, which makes sense. I think the Eagles should too, because they have nothing to play for. All right, so time for my picks and thoughts on each game. So there's no Sunday night game, but all of these games are on Sunday. No Thursday, Monday, Saturday games. These are all Sunday. Sunday early afternoon, late afternoon games. They have 9 late afternoon games. The reason why was because they didn't want any team having no competitive disadvantage, knowing how one result ended beforehand, even though they did with some of those teams, they did actually get that opportunity, but I digress. But time for my pick some thoughts on each game. So, on Sunday, when the 5-10 Chicago Bears go to the 12-3 Minnesota Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings are 12-point favorites in this game. I like Minnesota here minus 12, and Minnesota straight up. Then the next game, when the 0-15 Cleveland Browns go to the 12-3 Pittsburgh Steelers, the Pittsburgh Steelers are 13.5-point favorites in this game. I like Pittsburgh here minus 13.5, and Pittsburgh straight up. Then the next game, when the 8-7 Dallas Cowboys go to the 13-2 Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys are 2.5-point favorites in this game. I like Dallas here minus 2.5, and Dallas straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-8 Green Bay Packers go to the 8-7 Detroit Lions, the Detroit Lions are 7-point favorites in this game. I like Green Bay here plus 7, but I will take Detroit straight up. Then the next game, when the 4-11 Houston Texans go to the 3-12 Indianapolis Colts, the Indianapolis Colts are 4-point favorites in this game. I like Indianapolis here minus 4, and Indianapolis straight up. Then the next game, when the 5-10 New York Jets go to the 13-2 New England Patriots, the New England Patriots are 15.5-point favorites in this game. I like New England here minus 15.5, and New England straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-8 Washington Redskins go to the 2-13 New York Giants, the Washington Redskins are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I like Washington here minus 3.5, and Washington straight up. Then the next game, when the 7-8 Arizona Cardinals go to the 9-6 Seattle Seahawks, the Seattle Seahawks are 9.5-point favorites in this game. I like Arizona here plus 9.5, but Seattle straight up. Then the next game, when the 8-7 Buffalo Bills go to the 6-9 Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills are 3-point favorites in this game. I like Buffalo here minus 3, and Buffalo straight up. Then the next game, when the 11-4 Carolina Panthers go to the 9-6 Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Falcons are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I like Carolina here plus 3.5, and I like Carolina here straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-9 Cincinnati Bengals go to the 9-6 Baltimore Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens are 9.5-point favorites in this game. I like Cincinnati here plus 9.5, but I'll take the Baltimore Ravens straight up. Then the next game, when the 10-5 Jacksonville Jaguars go to the 8-7 Tennessee Titans, the Tennessee Titans are 4-point favorites in this game. I like Jacksonville here plus 4, and Jacksonville straight up. And then the next game, when the 9-6 Kansas City Chiefs go to the 5-10 Denver Broncos, the Denver Broncos are 3.5-point favorites in this game. I like Kansas City here plus 3.5, and Kansas City straight up. Then the next game, when the 11-4 New Orleans Saints go to the 4-11 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the New Orleans Saints are 7-point favorites in the game. I like New Orleans here minus 7, and New Orleans straight up. Then the next game, when the 6-9 Oakland Raiders go to the when the 6-9 Oakland Raiders go to the 8-7 Los Angeles Chargers, the LA Chargers are 8-point favorites in this game. I like the Oakland Raiders here plus 8, but the LA Chargers straight up. And finally, when the 5-10 San Francisco 49ers go to the 11-4 LA Rams, the San Francisco 49ers are 1.5-point underdogs in this game. I like San Francisco here plus 1.5, and San Francisco straight up. All right, it's time for my thoughts on each game. Minnesota over the Bears. See, when you look at the Bears year, it was an overall up and down year. The Bears defense was ravaged by injuries. Leonard Floyd went down. Freeman went out for a while. Willie Young had some defensive problems. Their secondary is pretty solid, though. You've had a good year by Eddie Jackson, a great rookie. Kyle Fuller had one of his better years. And Jordan Howard and Tariq Cohen on the offense is a very good two-headed monster, but the receivers really couldn't do anything. Marcus Wheaton really didn't contribute. Zach Miller blew out his knee, but thankfully he's okay. You had the offensive line with Charles Leno and Sitton, doing pretty solid. They lost Kyle Long to an injury just a couple weeks ago. And you had Trubisky as a quarterback who overall showed some flashes, but definitely showed that he still has a lot of development to go. And I do believe John Fox will get fired at the end of this year, which I believe he deserves after having 3 consecutive losing seasons. But, with that being said, I do think the Bears have some potential. There are, a good offensive line, a very talented defense, and a quarterback that, can improve with a good offensive mind, which I do believe the Bears should hire. And they should keep Vic Fangio on as defensive coordinator. But when you look at this game, the Vikings, they just played fantastic football. They pitched a 16-0 shutout, only the second time in the Packers-Vikings rivalry or that they've had a shutout for the Vikings in Lambeau Field. They got 2 more, Harrison Smith got 2 more interceptions on Brett Hundley, which means that Brett Hundley has turned the ball over 5 times against the Green Bay Packers. This Vikings team has been absolutely fantastic at home. The Vikings will be able to run the ball pretty consistently. I feel like, and also there's kind of a transitive property effect here. A few weeks ago, the Bears blew out the Bengals by 29 points. The Vikings the next week hosted the Bengals and blew them out by 27 points. So if they could do that against Cincinnati, who just, they could definitely do that with the Bears. And also, again, the Bears have proven to be a very good home team, but not a very good road team. Like, when they've gone on the road, they got blown up by Green Bay. They got blown up by Tampa. The Detroit game was by 10 points. I'm trying to think of some of the other road games. They lost to Green Bay. Oh, boy, I talked about that one. They did beat us. They did beat the Ravens on the road, so that's kind of irritating. But they also, they're just not a very good road team in general. And I feel like with the Vikings, they're playing for something. All their stars are going to play. They should be able to have another consistent game and lead them to the number 2 seed for the first time since 2009. And for Case Keenum to have a 11-3 years, and that's a fantastic accomplishment for him. And he definitely is a key piece that the Vikings will need to manage in the offseason. And I guarantee you, I believe they will keep him as well, which they should. So that's why I like Minnesota here, -12, and Minnesota straight up. Next game. Pittsburgh over the Browns. This is one of those games, it's just like Houston. Houston was banged up. Houston didn't have that much talent. Cleveland's banged up. They don't have that much talent. It's kind of a microcosm of what happened. The first game of the year, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they only won by 3 points. We all thought maybe the Browns could do something. Obviously, over the last several weeks, they've shown that they are still the Browns. And they will finish with a 1-31 record in a 2-year span, which will, I believe, tie the Buccaneers in their first couple years of existence as the worst record in all of NFL history. And again, I will keep pounding that Hugh Jackson needs to be fired because all those other coaches, the Mike Pettins and Rob Chudinskis and all those guys, that's unfair to them. That in 2 years or less, those guys have won more games for the Cleveland Browns than Hugh Jackson. And if I'm Sam Darnold at USC, and if I'm Josh Rosen, who's thinking about not even entering the draft because of Cleveland having that number 1 pick, I would tell them to stay in school. Let the Cleveland Browns continue to suffer until John Dorsey can prove that with a okay quarterback, they can not only win a few games, but show that they are a competent organization. Because that's what Cleveland has shown that they haven't been over the last several years, a competent organization. And that's even with Jimmy Haslam and the other owners before. But I'm taking Pittsburgh here. You have Justin Hunter playing, well. You have Le'Veon who can run the ball effectively, better offensive line. Then, has, I believe, only lost 2 or 3 times. He's won more games against the, I know the stat. He's won more games in the state of Ohio, where he's beaten the Browns 4 times in Ohio than the Browns have had in a single season since they've been back in '99. This is just one of those matches with Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh just has the more experience. They're used to this. And Cleveland, they may be, fighting, for their coach and to fight for the Hall of Infamy. But if they couldn't beat the Bears of a rookie quarterback, if they couldn't beat the Packers of Brett Hundley, there's no way they're beating a motivated Pittsburgh team at home, knowing that they can, secure possible home field advantage, even though they won't. They're not going to beat this team. I feel like Pittsburgh is going to put Cleveland into the ground, into the pit of misery, dilly-dilly, and they'll send the Browns to the Lions as the only 2 0-16 teams in the NFL. and only the third team in NFL history with a winless season. So that's why I like Pittsburgh here minus 13.5, and Pittsburgh straight up. Next game, the Cowboys over Philadelphia. You know, that Cowboys-Seahawks game was so bizarre because the Dallas Cowboys were the better football team. They played better defense. They made more plays. Ezekiel only had 97 yards rushing. The Seahawks had gained less total yards than they occurred in penalty yards. But at the end of the day, here was the biggest difference in the game. Russell Wilson had 2 passing touchdowns. Dak Prescott had 2 interceptions. Dak Prescott threw his 4th pick six. He only had 4 overall interceptions last year. That was the difference in this game. And also Dan Bailey's leg. And I do believe he deserves some criticism for this. Again, he is considered one of the top 3 or 4 kickers in the NFL. Top 3 or 4 kickers do not keep their legs tired from 4 kicks already made in the game, and they miss a 34-yarder and a 48-yarder. You ask Justin Tucker, you ask Steven Gostkowski to make those kicks, they'll make those kicks, for their 5th or 6th kick. So, but I'm taking Dallas here because Philadelphia, they didn't look good. Foles completed half his passes. They had the lowest amount of total yards. I believe they had 224 total yards. They had only 1 of 11 on third down. It was a horrible game offensively for the Eagles, and their defense finally lifted up and played a fantastic game. But the reason why I'm taking the Cowboys is the Eagles have clinched everything. They're the number 1 seed. They'll have the best record in the NFL, or be tied for it at least. And I just feel like, again, they're just going to rest their starters and let the Cowboys get a sympathy win and get another winning record. But I do believe the Eagles should start at least Nick Foles and give Nick Foles. I would start him for the whole game. I would get it if they benched him at the half. I would do it because I would want Nick Foles to get more reps with guys against against number 1 in the Cowboys defense, because how bad he played, he needs more reps and he needs that confidence, and he needs to show that he can play better than that 19-38. Because then the Eagles, if he plays like that in the playoffs, they're a one-and-done team. I don't care who they play. I think they're not going to be able to win that game. But yeah, I'm taking Dallas here just because Philadelphia's resting their starters. If Philadelphia was healthy, I think Dallas still could put up a fight and they could possibly pull off an upset. But they're not playing their starters. Cowboys have this victory. It's going to be a nice sympathy case for Jason Garrett and Jerry Jones. They can brag that they've had 2 winning seasons. Back-to-back for the first time since, I believe, 06-07. So it's been 10 years since they've had 2 consecutive winning seasons. So good for them. But at the end of the day, they didn't make the playoffs, which is all what Cowboy fans really wanted at the end of the day. So that's why I like Dallas here minus 2.5 and Dallas straight up. The next game, the Lions over Green Bay. Green Bay at this point, it's amazing that Jordy Nelson has not caught a touchdown from anybody else besides Aaron Rodgers. But the Packers, they tried their hardest. But, when you have Brent Hundley as your quarterback, Hundley had about 2 or 3 turnovers against the Lions on Monday Night Football before. And I just feel like he can do that again. But this is one of those things where the Lions, and this is where, even though I'm going to take the win, I just want to have this moment. And this is why I'm taking the Lions, or I'm taking the Packers plus 7. I just want a moment here to talk about the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions had the easiest road to the playoffs. All they had to do was win their final 2 games, and that's it. They were playing a Bengal team that had nothing to play for. They had got whipped by their other 2 divisional teams, the Vikings and Bears, in back-to-back weeks. They were embarrassing. I wasn't expecting the Lions to do that, but I was at least expecting them to win. Montez Burfict went out in the 3rd quarter, but Matt Stafford throws for about 200 yards, a TD, and an interception, and they end up losing the game by 9 points. This is an indictment on the Detroit Lions. This is an indictment on Jim Caldwell, who, even if he had won and made the playoffs, if he had lost his first playoff game against the Rams, he would have been the next Marvin Lewis. And it would have been completely fair to call him that, because that would mean in his 4 years he would have made the playoffs 3 times and not made it. But you know what? and I believe Jim Caldwell, since he's not making the playoffs now, should be fired. And it's absolutely hilarious that Mark Ford and shout out to Half Moon's Picks and all Lions fans, you can tell me why Matt Stafford's a great quarterback. You know what Matt Stafford is? Matt Stafford is a quarterback that just fills up stat sheets. He doesn't win anything. The guy's 5 games below 500, and even with the running game that hasn't had a 100-yard rusher in over 5 years. I get all that. You've had the top 5 in takeaways, so you got to take away from Andy Dalton with that big interception by Quandre Diggs. But can anybody tell me why Matt Stafford and Jim Caldwell need to be on this Lions team next year? These guys aren't winners. You paid $135 million for the easiest road to the playoffs to get choked away like that? To give Marvin Lewis his last big hurrah in Paul Brown Stadium? No. That's not it. Jim Caldwell needs to be fired. He's an overrated head coach with the Lions. The only reason he got to the Super Bowl in the first place with the Colts was because Peyton Manning was really coaching the team. He hasn't been that good as a head coach. Because after Peyton Manning left, he went 2-14. They canned him, and then he had one good run with the Ravens with Joe Flacco. He had one big throw, and then he got the Lions job, and he only made the playoffs 2 times. One way to be backed in. And I just don't get the Lions. They're not a good team, and I feel like Stafford and Caldwell, I know Stafford can't lead, but they should be heavily criticized for how bad and embarrassing that choke job was for them to miss the playoffs for the 6th time in 9 years. And for the 2nd time in 4 years on the Caldwell. So, again, I'm going to take the Lions here to win because the Packers are just, not really doing anything. They gave up after they put Rodgers on the IR. And they're just not good. But I just wanted to take that time and say that the reason why I'm taking the Packers +7 is because the Lions can prove to you that in any game of any significance, any closeness, they will let you down more often than not. So that's why I like Green Bay here +7, but Detroit straight up. Next game, the Colts over Houston Texans. I'm taking Indianapolis here because what the Colts have shown me over the last several weeks is that even though, again, Chuck Pagano has just said that he believes this will be his last rodeo, which I agree with, I think Jacoby Brissett's done a great job. He's, for the circumstances, he's proven to be a quality quarterback for the Colts. They have Frank Gore, who at 34 has done a phenomenal job. He had a career high in rushes at 36 a couple of weeks ago. He is only the 3rd running back in NFL history to lead his team in rushing for 12 consecutive seasons. But I just like what the Colts have done. Like, they played against the Ravens in a game that should have been way less competitive than it was. And Brissett made some good plays to Doyle, to Hilton. And T.Y. Hilton the last time, he only had about 2 or 3 catches, but 2 of those catches for huge touchdowns. I'm proud of Houston defense has shown against plays like Martavius and Juju Smith-Schuster. T.Y. Hilton can burn them again. And for the Texans, you know what? This is just one of those things where it's just a injured, hobbled up, Walking Dead-like team, going into this game. Whoever wins it, I feel like for Indy, this game's more important for Pagano than Bill O'Brien because he'll be back next year for the Texans. But I'm taking the Colts here because they're a little bit more talented and a little more motivated, and they're at home. But I'd be surprised if Houston won the game a little. But if you told me TJ Yates can get a thing going, DeAndre Hopkins with one of the catches of the year, congrats to him. I feel like for the Colts, though, this is a sentimental victory to send Chuck Pagano out with one last win before he loses his job on New Year's Day. So that's like Indianapolis here -4 and Indianapolis straight up. Next game, the Patriots over the New York Jets. This is a game that is fairly simple. Look, the Jets, I will give them credit. Bryce Petty and that Jets offense and that Jets team has not given up on Todd Bowles. They are one of the better 5-10 teams I've ever seen on how competitive they've been in every single game. That may be enough for Todd Bowles to keep his job. I needed him to get 6 wins. He did not achieve that threshold, or he will not achieve that threshold, in my opinion. And I believe he will be fired. But if you just look at the Patriots, look, they were tied at the half, they were tied at the half going into the game against Buffalo. They ended up winning by 21 points and covering the 12-point spread. I feel like, again, the Jets, they could hang around and they'd be competitive. And even if they're competitive through a half, it's Bryce Petty. It's not Tyrod Taylor. I feel like the Pats should just be able to easily smooth through this game and clinch home field advantage for the third time in the last 4 seasons. The last 2 times they did it, they went to the Super Bowl. And I feel like with how the AFC is, they're on that way again. Congrats to Belichick and the Pats. Another 13-win season. They just got James Harrison from Pittsburgh, which will be a useful asset in terms of his physical ability and also his intellect of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So congrats for that. But I'd show you again, the Pats, too talented. They know what's at stake. And the Jets are just not nearly as talented. Like, if they had Josh McCown like you did week 7, I feel like Josh McCown in that team could have covered the 15 points. But Bryce Petty there. And the Chargers aren't the Patriots are not the Chargers. They're much better than that. I feel like, again, New England should be able to get this victory easily and clinch the number 1 seed the 3rd time in 4 seasons. So that's why I like New England are minus 15.5 and New England straight up. Next game, Washington over the New York Giants. This is one of those games that should be a sentimental moment for the New York Giants. This, I believe, will be Eli Manning's final game. He should be able to start it. He should be able to play through it. And the Giants fans, it's been a horrible year. Everything has gone wrong. This is the great, the great blue depression. This is their blue period. Any art fans out there? A very dark blue period for the New York Giants. With how bad this season's been, they fired their head coach. They fired their general manager. Cromartie, has had his quabblings. Landon Collins has called Eli Apple a cancer. Eli Manning looks like a shell of himself. They just got shut out by the Arizona Cardinals, and Eli Manning looked like a scrub compared to Drew Stanton. The streak was over. It's just a miserable mess. But the Giant fans should really take this final game and appreciate what Eli Manning has done for them. I know he's been bad, and yes, he could have been benched after the Cowboys game, how bad he played, and the next 2 games after that. I get that. But this could be Eli Manning's final game. And through all the misery, Giant fans should be able to hopefully enjoy this one last time before they completely start their new deal, like FDR did, and move on to create a bigger and better New York Giant brand. Maybe somebody else has modified the slogan before, but the Giants 2018 slogan should be "Make the New York Giants Great Again." That's what their plan should be. But I'm taking the Washington Redskins here. The Washington Redskins over the last 3 weeks have played Denver, Arizona, and the Giants. And it's all come down to me where the Redskins, they have a little bit more talent and they have the better quarterback. This is what Kirk Cousins does best. He likes to beat up, scrubby teams that aren't that good, that have lost motivation, that, don't really have anything to do. And yes, he'll be 500 and people can say, well, look, he's had, 8 or 9 wins his first 3 years. Good for him. He's put up phenomenal numbers. But are you telling me that that's a franchise quarterback that's worth $27.5 million? No. Jay Gruden and Kirk Cousins on New Year's Day both need to be given their walking papers and let them. Yes, will someone pick up Kirk Cousins? They will, and he could at least give them a starting quarterback. But to me, franchise quarterbacks are not only just starting quarterbacks. Franchise quarterbacks are ones that can win you, can get you into the postseason and consistently, and give you an opportunity to win postseason games every single year. You may not win them all the time, but that's my definition of franchise quarterback. Kirk Cousins, he's not one just of his recent, success. Again, congrats, to Washington, for getting up to an 8-8 season, but you beat 3 teams that really, if you lost them, that would be more embarrassing. Against the better teams, we knew what the result was. Again, that's the weird thing with the Redskins. They have 2 of the biggest wins of the year. They should have 3. They could have beat the probable NFC South, the NFC West, and they beat the Seahawks in Seattle. But they have nothing to show for that. Because they lost to the Vikings, they got swept by the Cowboys, they got swept by the Eagles, they lost to the Chargers. And that's the problem with Washington right there. For as good of victories as those, 3 games should be, or 2 or 3 games should be. They have nothing to show for this. And all these meaningless games, what, for Washington fans, it's nice to win, but in some ways they're kind of in the pit of mediocrity because they're not going to get a top 10, top 15 pick, and that player may not be as effective. Hopefully he's not like Jonathan Allen gets hurt, but it's not as effective. But I like Washington here, more complete team, better quarterback, and just, a little more, talented and motivated. Maybe the Giants, for Eli's final game, they pull out all the stops. When you put Landon Collins on the IR with Jack Rabbit and all those guys, they're not nearly as talented. I think the Redskins, they have a little more talent, they have a little more confidence, and they have a goal of getting the 500, which I think is a little more important than the Giants, who just want to end the season. So that's all, like Washington minus 3.5, and Washington straight up. The next game, the Seahawks over Arizona. This is a game that I feel like Seattle, knowing what's at stake, knowing that with Carolina playing Atlanta for the NFC South title, possibly still up for grabs, I feel like Carolina will play well, and Seattle will play well to get in for that sixth playoff seed. Am I a little concerned about this? Yes, because Arizona is the only team to have 3 victories in Seattle in the Russell Wilson Pete Carroll era. They've done this 3 times. And of how Arizona's played under Drew Stanton, they play a lot better than Arizona under Blaine Gabbert. Remember, Blaine Gabbert had one big game against Jacksonville, but that was more Jacksonville's errors than Blaine Gabbert coming through. So that's why I like Arizona here plus 9.5, because the Cardinals have shown this year they can compete against anybody, whoever, if it's Blaine Gabbert, if it's Drew Stanton, Carson Palmer, whoever it is, they can compete. And Seattle's proven that with a very good defensive line, especially with guys like Chandler Jones, Buda Baker, Hassan Reddick, they can't protect Russell Wilson, and I don't think Russell Wilson then offensively will be able to put up enough to cover a 10-point spread. However, I do expect the Seahawks to win because I feel like, again, with what's on the line, with how they played against the Dallas Cowboys, they should use that motivation to carry them into the postseason. Once they get into the postseason and get beat up by the Rams or they get beat up by New Orleans, that's fine. They can move on from that. But I'm taking Seattle here because I feel like that confidence, along with Russell Wilson's ability and of how Arizona's defense has been, I think Seattle will be able to grind out this victory and clinch their 6th consecutive postseason berth and move on to get beaten up by the LA Rams. Should be a great game, though. I wouldn't be that surprised if Arizona won, because I feel like Arizona, knowing what all the rumors of Bruce Arians, he could go or not go. If he tells them more, hey, I'm leaving after this game, they want to send VA out with one final big victory. And there's something I think those Cardinal guys would appreciate more than knocking at their fellow division rival Seattle completely out of the playoffs. So that's why I like Arizona here plus 9.5, but Seattle straight up. Next game, the Bills over Miami. Buffalo was just a team that this was a game a couple weeks ago. It was in Buffalo. Do I think the Dolphins will play better? Yes. And the Dolphins have routinely played the Bills much better in Miami compared to Buffalo. But I feel like if Buffalo has any pride and just how Jay Cutler and this Dolphins team is, they're fumbling all the time. The offense, has spurts where it's really good and bad at times. And I just trust Buffalo to pull out this win. Like I know Tyron, look, they played a very good first half against New England. Jordan Poyer had a huge pick 6. And I feel like, again, if Tom Brady will give you 1 interception in a game, I feel like Jay Cutler will give you at least 2 to 3. And I don't think the Bills are going to squander those opportunities knowing what's at stake for them. Do I think Miami could win this game? Yeah, they could. It's a division game. Both these teams are more comparable and equal than not. But I feel like, again, with Buffalo, this is a team that they just played a couple weeks ago, and the Dolphins are out of playoff contention entirely. So they could try to extend the fans out with one, solid victory. But I think the Bills, they'll be able to pull together a good game plan to play their style of football, and Jay Cutler will give you 1 or 2 extra turnovers, which will be the difference in the game. So that's why I like Buffalo minus 3 and Buffalo straight up. The next game, Carolina over the Falcons. I'm taking Carolina here because I feel like for the Panthers, they're playing for the division. Like, Carolina, look, they were competitive against Tampa. Tampa, really, you could have argued should have won the game, but Patrick Murray misses a 51-yard field goal, and then Cam Newton botches the snap from 2 yards but runs it into the end zone. And I feel, again, the Panthers, true, they lost Deion Bird for the year of a knee injury, which is big because they really don't have that many wide receivers left. But I feel like with Russell Shepard, Devin Funchess, Greg Olsen, and this Panthers defense, which can cause a lot of havoc, especially with turnovers, and especially with how the Saints turn the ball over 2 or 3 times on Sunday against Atlanta. I know they're going to have their home crowd in front of them and be motivated, but Carolina should really consider this game, not only because they're playing for the division, but also even if the Saints wrapped the division last week, the Panthers should play this game like a regular season game that matters. Because I would honestly tell Panther fans and the Panthers organization, knock out Atlanta and let Seattle in. Let the Seattle Seahawks in. Because the Seattle Seahawks, I know they have the experience. I know they have Pete Carroll. I know they have a motivated defense. They are nowhere near as talented right now as the Atlanta Falcons. And I feel like, again, with that defensive line, they've lost to NFC South teams for the last 2 years. New Orleans or you could do the job and knock them out for a 3rd straight time. Do I think Atlanta can win this game? Yes. And I think the reason why I feel like Atlanta was the favorite in this game was because they're at home and they are going to be playing with a lot of motivation and passion to be able to get in the playoffs and not prove the Super Bowl hangover, really did exist because just like Carolina, they missed the playoffs after making Super Bowl with one of the better records. But at the end of the day, I feel like the Panthers, knowing the Saints are playing Tampa, and knowing how Tampa competed against New Orleans for a majority of that game, I feel like that same aspect can happen. And I feel like for Ron Rivera and that team, he's going to let them try and do the same exact thing and hope that Tampa can pull off an upset, or tell those guys Tampa can give New Orleans a run, which may give us the NFC South. So we should play this game like it means it, even though we're in the playoffs anyway. Yeah, I'm taking Carolina, though, because of those reasons. So that's why Carolina plus 3.5 and Carolina straight up. Next game, the Ravens over the Bengals. This is one of those games where, look, the Bengals had their moment. They beat the Lions. They knocked the Lions out of the playoffs. And as a Russell Wilson fan, I thank the Bengals for having their last, big hurrah from Marvin Lewis in that game. This is an idea for the Ravens where for the last several years, this is kind of a motivation factor as well. The Bengals have been our kryptonite every single year since 2013, basically. Since 2013, or since this new method has come about in 2010, when they made the division games again, the Ravens have always had to go to Cincinnati nearly every single year. And it's driven me nuts how many times we've lost to them, especially in the last 4 years, where all we had to do was beat them to get in the playoffs, and we couldn't do it. It frustrates me to no end. And it's so nice that, what a way for Marvin Lewis and them to go out by losing to the Ravens in our stadium. Do I think the Bengals, could put up a fight? Absolutely. Look, this is a Bengals-Ravens game. Throw the records out the window, and they sure would love, just like for the trying to think of the one game. Just as if for Bruce Arians in Arizona, there we go. Just like Bruce Arians in Arizona, if Marvin Lewis and the Bengals can knock the Ravens out of playoff contention with this victory, they would love to do that for their coach and organization to send them into a good spot with the year. But I think, again, with the Ravens, who have the number 1 overall, one of the best defenses in the NFL, most takeaways are 33. Joe Flacco's had 7 TDs and 1 interception in the last 4 games. I feel like the Ravens, I hope we get Macklin back. I think we need him for this game. I feel like the Ravens are in a good spot to use the home crowd, use the defense against the Bengal team that, for the most part, over the last several weeks, has given up on the team. I feel like it's a good way to send the Bengals out for the year on a 6-10 ending with a dominating, suffocating defensive performance against the Bengals. But it's going to be a close game because, again, the Ravens kind of showed against Indy that we like to hang games more than we should. So that's why I like Cincinnati at plus 9.5, but Baltimore straight up. Next game, Jacksonville over the Titans. DeMarco Murray has a third-degree MCL sprain. And I know that might be good for some for some Titans fans, that, Derrick Henry can grab the ball more, and that'll be more effective. And Mariota and the offense looked its most effective it's been in the last few weeks under this more no-huddle offense. But I'm going to take the Jags here because I feel like Jacksonville has two motivating factors. One, the number one defense in the NFL gave up probably season highs in every single defensive category, where it was so bad they actually are not the number one defense anymore, they're the number 2 or 3 defense. That was thanks to Jimmy G. That's number one. But also number 2, this is the one game where for the Jags, they're kind of like in the reverse Arizona-Cincinnati situation. They're already in the playoffs. But I'm pretty sure every Jag fan would love to knock out the Titans and send Mariota and this team from an 8-4, 12-game record to an 8-8 finish with no playoff appearance, with 4 straight losses, with 2 losses which were acceptable, and the other 2 which were not acceptable in terms of the road games against the Arizona Cardinals and San Francisco 49ers. And also, again, I have my theory. It's been proven this year. If you look at the Jags' weeks, every odd week, they have been dominating and played really well. Every even week, they either have lost the football game they played on that even week, or they barely won the football game, where you could argue they shouldn't have won the game, or they got lucky because a break went their way. And the 2 games I'm mentioning are the LA Chargers and the Seattle Seahawks, because they had 2 picks by Bortles in the fourth quarter within the last 2 minutes, and the Seahawks, or Aaron Colvin got away with a blatant PI on Paul Richardson, which could have made a difference in that game. So, but I digress. It's an odd week. I feel like the Jags, with that motivation of last week, getting that out of their heads, as a young team, feeling motivated, feeling confident, and knocking out the Titans. And also, again, this was the worst loss the Jags have suffered all year, was against this Titans team. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would love to, be able to knock them out into a 500 season where Mike Mularkey, Terry Robisky, Dick LeBeau, all those guys can be on the hot seat, possibly, and the Titans can continue to have to rebuild. And I think they will use that motivation to get this victory over the Titans. And again, the even out week formula. I'm going to believe in that one final time throughout your season and pull out a W with that. So that's why I like Jacksonville +4 and Jacksonville straight up. Next game, Kansas City over the Broncos. I know the Chiefs, they're locked in the 4 seed, but I still think with Patrick Mahomes, Kendrick West, Demetri Harris, Albert Wilson, let's see, I'm trying to think of D'Anthony Thomas, there we go. I'm trying to think of their backup tight end. Like all the backups, the backup corners like Steven Nelson, Murray, Eric Murray, Daniel Sorensen, they can still beat the Broncos, who have given up. I feel bad for Vance Joseph because I believe he'll be fired. I don't think he should be, because I think John Elway at that point is going to make the Denver Bronco job absolutely unattainable, because nobody will want to work with John Elway. Because John Elway truly believes that this team is a phenomenal team that could maybe not make the Super Bowl anytime soon, but at least be a winning football team. And if you can't get that by year 1, you're gone. That's just a horrible signal to other coaches why you don't want to work for John Elway. And, honestly, for Broncos fans' sake, that's bad, because all you Bronco fans are going to say, John Elway's the greatest thing. You can't fire John Elway. Yeah, watch. Look, and if you get another 1 or 2 coaches and he fires them in the next 2 years, blame John Elway then, because it's his fault. And until, you see that John Elway created this team. John Elway bought on Trevor Siemian. He bought on Paxton Lynch. He brought back Brock Osweiler. This is more his fault than I believe Vance Joseph is. And Vance Joseph at least deserves 1 more year to try to coach this team, but I don't think he'll get it. But even with that, I feel like, again, KC backups, it's good for Patrick Mahomes. He's going into a tough environment. Nobody's really, expecting him, even if he loses, nobody cares. But it's all about, for him, just getting that experience. And I feel like, again, he'll outplay Paxton Lynch. So like the team he has around him with his skill set, he'll be able to outplay Paxton Lynch, and the Chiefs will get a very good look at a quality deep against a loaded defensive team that maybe not be motivated, but still out there playing to see what they have for their future. So that's why I like KC here, +3.5, and KC straight up. Next game, the Saints over the Buccaneers. New Orleans has been on an absolute roll. They made the playoffs for the first time in a while. Drew Brees became the third player to pass for 70,000 passing yards. Congrats to him. And I'm just taking the Saints here, -7, because I just don't trust Tampa. I may regret not taking Tampa +7 because Tampa Bay in their last 3 games have played very close games, which they should have won. But with how Jameis is leading the league in fumbles, Doug Martin isn't having as much time, Jackson may be out for the game. I just feel like, again, the Saints, if they blew them out in the Superdome, they can play well enough with that defense and offense enough to win at least by 8 or more against the Buccaneers, who are just limping into their year. And again, I feel like Dirk Cutter and Mike Mularkey, Cutter's on a hotter seat, but you feel like with all the injuries that Tampa's had and all the ups and downs, Cutter may be more safe compared to Mularkey, who had an 8-4 record in the AFC South and blew the final 4 games. And 2 of those games he really shouldn't have won. So that's why I like New Orleans here -7 and New Orleans straight up. Next game, the Chargers over the Raiders. Jack Del Rio needs to be gone on New Year's Day. This was one of the biggest disappointments of the year. I would say it's the AFC version of the Bucs in the sense that we had a lot of expectations for this Raiders team, and everybody on that Raider team took a step backward. Yes, there were some injuries like Amari Cooper, Michael Crabtree got suspended for a game, a couple of their linemen went down. But this is a Raider team that should not be a 6-9 football team. And it's really showing you that the Raiders, they weren't really good last year. Well, they were more lucky than good. Yes, they were able to pull out all those victories, but that was more so luck in terms of being able to get 2-point conversions, getting last-second touchdowns, last-second field goals, instead of actual skill. Because they've been in some close games just like this year, but they couldn't pull it out. So that's just more, luck-based than skill-based. But I'm going to take the Oakland Raiders here +8 because I thought the Chargers would blow out the Jets. Obviously, I was wrong. It was a 7-point game all the way. Melvin Gordon injured his ankle. And I feel like Eckler can do well enough Eckler and Watt can do enough to keep this running game afloat against this Raiders defense, which hasn't been very good at all. But I feel like the Chargers will win. They know what's at stake, and they know what a phenomenal success story for them would be to go from a 0-4 team to a 9-7 finish, to go 9-3 in your final 12 games, and get the 6th seed. And I would tell every team in the NFL playoffs, the Chargers and Ravens are the 5 and 6 seeds, the wild cards. They can go into anybody's building and at the very least compete to have those teams earn the victory, and it will not be any cakewalks by both the wild card teams in the AFC. So that's why I like Oakland there +8 for the LA Chargers straight up. And finally, the Niners over the Rams is just like Eagles Cowboys. Jimmy Garoppolo and the Niners, he's been the savior in San Francisco. He is the 2018 version of the LA Rams, in my opinion. This will be a team that will at least have a winning record next year, and it could very well make the playoffs with this team, with Jimmy Garoppolo at the helm. But the only reason why I'm taking the Niners here is because the Rams are resting their guys. Sean McVay said it's likely that they're going to rest a lot of their starters. They're not really playing for anything besides the 3 or 4 seed. And I think, honestly, with the Rams, they could beat either of those teams in the 5 or 6 seeds, Carolina, Atlanta, or Seattle. Or Carolina, Atlanta, New Orleans, or Seattle. They could beat either of those teams in LA, whoever they have to play. So I feel like, again, the Niners are going to pull off an incredible stretch where they were on the verge of getting the number 1 pick or number 1 or number 2 overall pick, and you were all thinking this is great. They could tank, they could do miserably, but then they found Jimmy Garoppolo, and he proved, hey, we can win football games to go on a 5-1 run to end the year, which is absolutely amazing in my opinion, for the Niners, and they have found their quarterback, and they are a very intriguing and exciting team for next year. And I feel like if the Niners made the playoffs at this point, they could beat the Panthers, they could beat Seattle, they could beat Atlanta. Like, if they were in a playoff game between those 3 teams, I'd probably take the Niners to win those games in all 3 of those situations to how they're playing right now. So those are my picks and thoughts for this week. Like, comment, rate, subscribe. Please check out the NFL YouTube prognosticators page. There's so many great people on there that make prediction videos for the NFL season, just like I do. And please check them out, give them comments, and see how you think their picks are compared to mine and compared to your own. So that's it. So good luck to all players, coaches, teams, any fantasy players. I've already won 1 league championship this year. I'm trying to win my 2nd this week. So anybody that is still playing in the divisional week, first of all, I feel sorry for you. Good luck. Including me. Any fantasy players and fellow prognosticators, And until next week for the postseason edition of picks, this is Matthew Fanatic signing off. Until next time, so long.